Good morning, morning sitters. This beautiful group of 7 a.m. PIMC dedicated practitioners, welcoming all of us of every age and ethnicity and cultural heritage, religious background and socioeconomic group, our ability and sexual orientation and gender identity, practicing together for the benefit of all beings and for this living earth, recognizing the suffering caused by biases and prejudices and systems of power and privilege and oppression, and aspiring to do no harm, to dismantle barriers that cause separation and suffering, recognizing that our liberation is interconnected with the liberation of all, and honoring those indigenous peoples whose lands we live on. Here in Portland, the Clackamas, the Cowlitz, the tribes of the Confederated Grand Ronde, and the bands of the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz peoples, respectfully acknowledging all indigenous communities of the past and the present and in the future. And if you don't live in this area, you may just quietly think of those whose lands you are on. If you've never looked it up, there's a website, native.ca, I think is what it is. And it's really fascinating because you can look up your area by your zip code and you can see all of the tribes that were in your area, thousands of years they inhabited. And you can see the languages that were spoken and current events that are happening there. And so just acknowledging our ancestral history and the indigenous people, as well as all of those Asian immigrants in the 19th century that immigrated here and began to arrive in the New World in the US, from China and Sri Lanka. Oh, did I just disappear? No, I'm okay. All of a sudden my screen went blank. So just acknowledging those who went before us that came here to North America, to the gold rush, and just about every Buddhist country is represented. Korean Buddhists, Thai Buddhists, Cambodian Buddhists, Vietnamese. And it's because of them that we have been able to hear the teachings of the Buddha. And we can really honor and know that we have this as a basis of our support, stability for our support. And I am going to start the recording on the cloud, so it will be there for anyone,
recording in progress.
Anyone who misses or wants to come back later to watch it. I believe that Jamie puts the link onto the Vimeo account. How many of you have ever gone back and looked at those? Probably. Oh, Janice, you have? Lynn, you have too? Okay. Then it's worth it. I think that I would like to start this morning with a couple of readings. In my Tuesday class, we've been going over the Dhammapada. And those of you who may not know, excuse me, my throat seems to be scratchy and dry. Funny how that is with age. Things seem to get drier and drier. And I think I'm not the only one experiencing this. So the Dhammapada is a collection of verses that has been gleaned out of one little area of the Buddha's teachings, one of the suttas, but it has elevated to great popularity because the verses are short and pithy, and a person can get, it's sort of the way I used to open up the I Ching. You can open it anywhere and read it and have advice, and it's also really a good bottom line for understanding some of the teachings. For people that have a little more intellectual drive, it can stimulate reflection, and some people have actually begun their career in Buddhist practices by starting with the Dhammapada. I think Mark Epstein is one of those people, if any of you know Mark Epstein. He's a psychotherapist in New York City. And anyway, that's enough talking. I'm sure most of you have heard some of these readings before, but some of you might be new to it. So I'm going to read a few verses from the 3rd chapter on the mind. Just as an arrow maker straightens an arrow shaft, even so the discerning person straightens their mind, so fickle and unsteady, so difficult to guard and control. As a fish, when pulled out of water and cast on lands, throbs and quivers, even so is this mind, agitated. Hence, one should leave the realm of Mara. Wonderful indeed it is to subdue the mind, so difficult to subdue, ever swift and wandering wherever it desires. A tamed mind brings happiness. Let the discerning person guard their mind, so difficult to detect and extremely subtle, wandering wherever it desires. A guarded mind brings happiness. So we take up this training to notice. We can't help but notice the mind, like the fish flopping around on dry land. And we take this time to subdue the mind, to let the mind cool. I'm going to read one more opportunity of encouragement from Dipa Ma, the life and legacy of the Buddhist master, who many of the teachers in the Western tradition have met Dipa Ma in India when they went there. And she came to Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts in the 80s. And there was a book called Dipa Ma that is a compilation of stories of their interactions with her. Sharon Salzberg's in it, Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, many, many others. Your heart is everything. Bowing to love. In a busy Santa Fe coffee house one morning, Sharon Salzberg was asked, "What was Dipa Ma's greatest gift to you?" Sharon paused for a moment, and her face softened. "Dipa Ma really loved me," she said, "and when she died, I wondered, will anyone ever really love me like that again?" She fell silent, and for a few moments, it was as if a gate had opened into another world. In this other place, there was only one thing, complete and total love. Jacqueline Mandel once asked Dipa Ma whether she should be practicing mindfulness or loving kindness. Dipa Ma answered, "From my own experience, there is no difference between mindfulness and loving kindness." For her, love and awareness were one. Think about it. When you are fully loving, aren't you also mindful? When you are fully mindful, Is it not also the essence of love? Joseph Goldstein recalls that once when he saw Dipa Ma bow to the Buddha, it was so clear that there was no one there. It was just love bowing to love. Another student said to Dipa Ma, enlightenment was great love. Her teachings were about connecting to others and being kind. And in that great heart, everyone, whether in sorrow or in celebration, could come and go and be held in her loving embrace. A Sufi teacher, Asha Greer, described being hugged by Dipa Ma so thoroughly that my 6 feet fit into her great, vast, empty heart with room for the whole of creation. And Dipa Ma was about 5'2", I think. And so as we bow to the Buddha, to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha, may we hold ourselves in a spaciousness of great love. Whether we can tap into it or whether we can just settle, may we let a sense of spaciousness, a sense of letting go of attachment to who we know ourselves to be. We can realize that in this lifetime, being born human, this precious human birth, we have the opportunity to hear and practice the Dhamma. And we are privileged enough to have direct lineage of teachings through many, many translations and thousands of years, 2,600 plus years, that the teachings have been kept alive. There were eons of time where the Buddha's teachings were unknown. And honoring the Sangha, those who have gone before us, many, many generations, ringing bowls every time they sit, acknowledging the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and allowing love to be in their hearts. That metta practice that we do has been going on for thousands of years, and we are a part of someone else's wishing for love, wishing for kindness, wishing for well-being. We're someone else's neutral person. As I ring the bowl, we let the sound just come to the ears. The call to the breath, the call to coming together, the heart, the mind, the body, in one place, sitting on a cushion or a chair. Noticing whatever sensations might be occurring in the body. What do we notice first? Is there tingling somewhere or pressure somewhere? There may be warmth or coolness at the nostrils or feeling air against the face. Whether you're new to the practice or a long-time practitioner, the process is the same. Letting the heart and mind settle. It often doesn't feel that way. Many times there's a busy mind racing around. That's okay. We can notice that with mindfulness. Or there may be places in the body that call our attention. Something might feel pleasant. Something else might feel unpleasant. Excuse me. We're just here to be with whatever arises. To let mindfulness be at the fore with a neutral attitude. Mindfulness sees everything. It can be present for sleepiness or restlessness. It can be present for agitation in the mind. It can be present for cycles of pushing away something arising. Maybe there's pain in the body, or grasping at something that's very pleasant. No matter all of these conditions, they arise due to factors that brought them together, over which we have no control, but we can notice. And we can notice what the attitude of the mind is, what the attitude of the heart is. As we hold ourselves with this vessel of the container of our body breathing, we may notice if the breath is long or short, warm or cool. We can return to the breath when the mind is lost in thoughts, as it likes to do. We could return to the body point of contact, sitting on the cushion or feet on the floor, or where the hands are touching. Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the breath, And as we become more aware of what is here in this present moment, we may notice that it's impermanent. Something that is pleasant, we can't hang on to. Something that is unpleasant only leaves on its own accord. We can't push it away, but we can watch it leave, or we can watch it change. It's interesting how sensations in the body are that way. We might feel an aching or a tingling somewhere at our hip because of the way we're sitting, or our knee. And on further investigation, as we let awareness be present with it, we find that it dissipates or changes from one sensation to another, or maybe moves to a different little place. We begin to see that it's empty of any solidity. And if we choose that breath as the single object of our attention, or that touch point, we can notice details about it. Is it cool or warm or tingling? Without trying to make something up, or just in the very knowing of what it is. Pure awareness in this moment. Pure awareness in this moment. We may notice returning to the breath at the nostrils or at the sit point, that there's pressure or tingling. Warmth or coolness. And we can see more clearly that conditions come together. They stay for a while and then they dissipate, they change, they move, they disappear. Empty of any solid existence. If we feel something unpleasant, like annoyance, we have the opportunity to look at the feelings, that feeling of annoyance, that agitation somewhere in the body. Not at the thought that's causing the annoyance, but we notice how what arises feels. This is pleasure, this is pain, this is annoyance, this is how it feels. And we stay with it to discover how the feeling changes or what happens to this annoyance or happiness or sadness as we keep watching it. Bringing mindfulness to the present moment, awareness is there, and wisdom arises to notice what might be unhelpful to our practice, inclining the heart and mind toward kindness, compassion, just enough energy to stay interested in what's going on, patience. As the body gets more settled and still, the mind gets a little calmer. We can let our awareness move from the single object where concentration can get developed to a more open awareness where we attend to whatever comes into each of our sense doors. So whatever practice works best. If you're agitated and busy-minded, going to the single object of the breath or the touch point can create something single-pointed for the mind to pay attention to. And if you tend toward sleepiness or dullness, you can broaden your awareness to noticing pressure at various places in the body, feelings that may arise in the mind of pleasant or unpleasant or neutral to whatever comes up. The mind door, or we may notice something at the hearing door or the smelling door, the touching door. We have this entire container of our body breathing. To have awareness, to have presence be known. The breath rising and falling, it's like this. Feeling the breath, watching the breath in and out, asking ourselves, where is the touch of the breath? Where do we feel the breath? If it's short, we let it be short. If it's heavy, we let it be heavy. If it is refined, we let it be refined. We just feel it. mind wanders away, we notice this. And we say to ourselves, thinking. And then come back again to the rising and the falling of the breath. Whatever comes, a sensation somewhere else like pain in the leg, we can take our mind there and notice pain. And when it goes away or fades, then we can come back to watching the touch of the breath. If restlessness comes, we can note restlessness. If we hear a noise or my talking, we can note hearing. And then come again to the feeling of the breath. If memories come, we know them as memories. Anything that we see, anything that comes to the mind, just be aware of it. We simply observe. We're observing the rising, the falling of the breath and the phenomenon that arise in the body and in the mind. There's no need to hang on or keep anything that arises or try to make it stay. Simply observe. In insight practice, we are observing the rising and falling of the breath and the phenomenon that arise in the mind and the body. Endless phenomenon rolling on. So there's a shifting of the mind from sensations felt, both painful and pleasurable, to thoughts as well. Whatever is happening to be noticed, then that will go away and another thing will come. And so in this way, insight practice is a method of observation. All the senses will arise. We just watch them arise and pass away and come back to the feeling of the breath. Anything that we see, anything that comes to mind, we just want to be aware of it. We let go of thoughts of I. We let go of our addictions to thoughts and stories. Our minds are actually all stories, thoughts of the past and future. There really aren't any problems to solve. The problem that we think we're facing sometimes isn't really a problem at all. It's because we think this is mine. It's because we think this is something for me to solve. If we don't think in this way, then there's no trouble. We hold all in a spaciousness of awareness without clinging. As Deepa Ma did throughout her life, blessing instead of blaming. She didn't criticize others. She didn't gossip or use unnecessary speech. She followed the 5 precepts. And she blessed everyone and everything, like a living kindness prayer all the time. She said that blessing others will keep you attentive and mindful. And so as we hold ourselves in this open space of awareness, rising and falling, whatever comes into our awareness, may we hold ourselves in kindness. May we be at ease. May we hold other beings in kindness. Maybe there's someone close to us. May we hold them in this kindness of the open spaciousness of our being, non-clinging. Holding them in freedom, free from harm, safe and protected. May we hold a teacher or a benefactor also in that open spaciousness of well-being and kindness. May this sense of well-being in our hearts be open to including people that we don't know. Neutral people, someone we don't have an opinion about, or a group of people. Even someone that might be difficult to have kindness toward. May we hold that person gently. Just as I wish to be happy, I know that you also wish to be happy. Not having an attachment to the definition of who we think the person to be. Maybe there's some difficulty in this present moment with us. But in this unconditional space of kindness and of compassion, we can let all beings, we can aspire to letting the heart and mind incline toward including all beings in this sphere of loving awareness. Those who are in pain and sorrow, those who are in joy, those seen and unseen, known and unknown. Those that swim and fly and crawl and walk. All of those little bugs we're starting to see coming out of the earth in our spring weather right now. May all of those beings be free from harm. And all enlightened beings, all unenlightened beings, may all beings everywhere have happiness and the causes of happiness, be free from harm, safe and protected, and have ease in their lives. And may we really understand and know that the goodness from this practice benefits all beings. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya domino upakitva meruchanti te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things are subject to impermanence. They arise and pass away. And seeing this clearly with mindfulness brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. And before I ring the bell and we let our eyes open gently, I'm going to close with a poem by Dzogchen Master Longchen-pa called Learning Impermanence from Nature. In the forest, by the example of dead leaves, come to realize the body, youth, and senses change gradually and do not possess any true essence. By the example of empty lotus ponds, come to realize that various objects of desire, wealth, and prosperity are finally going to change, that there is no true essence in them, and that what is accumulated will be exhausted. By the example of the change of days, months, and the 4 seasons, come to realize that the blossoming spring flower-like body is subject to change as time passes. Its youth fades away, and the arrival of death is certain. By the example of the fall of ripened fruit, come to realize that all young, adult, or old are subject to die, that the time of death is uncertain, and that what is born will die. By the example of the rising and reflections in ponds, come to realize that the various phenomenon appear but have no true existence. They are like illusions, a mirage, and a water moon, and are certain to be empty of true existence. So as we go out to take our walk today, noticing leaves, noticing, well, we don't have any empty lotus ponds unless you happen to have a water feature in your yard, but may we notice the change of the seasons, when we might desire our body to be different than it is, or when we might wish that we had more youth or more maturity. That all of this arises and passes. And seeing this empty nature of things is really a joy of awakening in this very present moment. Thank you so much for your practice. It brings great joy.